Everyone. We're gathered here together on this Sunday again with Nick Jacombs. For the ones that already met him 2 days ago, Nick needs no introduction. He's a genius slash genetics expert slash data analyst expert. But for those who don't, let me introduce to you Nick Jacombs. Nick is Leafly's Director of Science and Innovation. He holds a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard University and the BS in genetics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And on a side note, he also hosts the Good Chemistry podcast. So after he's finished with the presentation and hopefully give us access to some questions from ourselves and from the public, you can go visit and follow Nick at his all his social networks. Nick, we're glad that we're here with you today again to have you here on this Sunday afternoon. We're telling you off camera that you became some sort of you founded a fan group and you get groupies right now. So people are very excited to have you here again. Thank you for accepting this invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the mic's all yours, Nick.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm gonna start off just by giving people some background to what Leafly is. So, as mentioned, I work at Leafly. Leafly is an online and mobile web application, and it's the world's largest information resource and marketplace for cannabis. So we've got about 120 million or so unique visitors that we'll expect to the Leafly app this year. And the reason so many people come to the app is because of the information and the marketplace that we have. So Leafly was actually founded approximately 10 years ago as a strain database. So the one of the most popular parts of Leafly is still that strain database. So there's over 5,200 strain pages on Leafly that have hundreds of thousands of strain reviews. So people visit those strain pages to learn about all the different cannabis strains that are out there, leave reviews about them, and so forth. We also have a really great news and educational content team that writes articles about virtually anything you can think about for cannabis. So a lot of Cannabis 101 content, the basics of what cannabis is and how you use it. A lot of breaking news and updates, so keeping people updated on the shifting legal landscape of cannabis in the US and Mexico and globally. And we're also a double-sided marketplace, meaning we're taking those consumers on one side and we're actually connecting them with retailers who have dispensaries, stores, and with brands who are selling cannabis products. So the majority of retailers in North America today, meaning in the United States and Canada, are actually on Leafly. So they have a page on Leafly, a virtual dispensary storefront. And one of the most popular features on Leafly is our online pre-ordering and delivery capabilities. So for many regions in the US and Canada, users can come online onto Leafly and they can actually pre-order or place a reservation for a product in the store on Leafly. And that way, when they show up to the store, they don't have to wait in line. So this is a cartoon graphic from some of our news content, and this is the current marijuana legalization map for the US. It's actually now officially out of date. New York just, I think, announced that next year they will be having adult use cannabis legal in 2022. But the point of this is really just to show you that the majority of states now, the majority of people in the US have access to either medical or adult use cannabis. And then obviously Canada to the north has had adult use cannabis for a couple of years now. And this map is constantly filling in. So we're constantly having to update this every year. And it's really exciting. And then obviously the reason I'm here is because south of us in Mexico, you guys are on the verge of legalizing cannabis as well. So it's a very exciting time. And one of the reasons it's exciting is because of the economic impact that cannabis has. So Our news team every year does the Leafly Jobs Report, which you may have heard about.
Sorry to interrupt you, Nick. I think your screen just froze on the one of the first slides. Mexico data and the future. Oh, okay, there we go. Now,
okay, can you see the map?
Yeah. Yes. Now we see the map. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. So this is the jobs map. So this is showing you the top 10 states in the U.S. Based on the number of full-time jobs that the legal cannabis industry is supporting. So it's only the top 10. This isn't everything. There was about 250,000, so about a quarter of a million jobs last year supported by legal cannabis. So it's one of the few areas in the past year that, the past year was very difficult for everyone. There was a lot of unemployment that happened in the US and abroad, but the cannabis industry was actually growing quite nicely in the US. And so it was a record year for new full-time jobs supported by the industry, which is just one of the benefits I think that comes with it. There's a lot of full-time jobs directly in the industry, and there's also a lot of full-time jobs in things that you might not expect, all of the ancillary supporting areas that start to pop up with all the innovation that you see. So what can Mexico expect? I just wanted to put together a slide with 3 things, just my personal opinion of what you can expect in Mexico when you guys legalize. And this is stuff that we sort of see everywhere. In every US state, you see the same basic pattern over and over and over again, which is right before legalization happens, we see a surge in activity on Leafly. People come to Leafly to read information and to try and understand what it's going to be like when cannabis legalizes. You get a surge of activity in the first year because people are so excited. But it usually takes quite a bit of time before everything sort of matures and becomes truly efficient. And so the first year is going to look very different from the second, and the third, and the fourth year when you guys legalize. One of the things that you see in the first year is there's so much demand that there's going to be very long lines at all of the stores. So anytime a state legalizes cannabis in the US, there's always lines around the block because there aren't enough stores to support the demand. There's not enough supply either. It takes time for legal licenses to get issued to retailers and to brands. It takes time for people to produce the cannabis. It can take, months and months, even years for people to really get going with growing the plants and creating all of the products. So demand is always higher than supply on day one, which means there's not enough products and the prices are high. But if you're patient, things get better. So as more and more stores get licenses, as more and more people start legally growing cannabis plants and producing cannabis products, those prices come down and the selection increases exponentially. So year 1, year 2, year 3, you're going to see a drastic drop in prices and an increase in the amount of and the diversity of selection that's out there. The second thing that I think is important is there's a lot of policy trade-offs that you're just going to have to grapple with and think about. And there's a lot that could be said here, and there's no right way to do it. Every state in the U.S. is a little bit different. Canada is a little bit different from the U.S. I'm sure Mexico will have differences from the U.S. and Canada. But one of the big things that I think is a trade-off is the trade-off between generating tax revenue from the sale of legal products and battling the illicit market. And the trade-off there really has to do with price. So in the U.S., we've generated, I don't have the exact numbers, but we've generated millions and millions of dollars in each state in the US through the tax revenue from the sale of legal products. And that's very good, obviously. The state can use that for a number of things. A lot of that in different states gets invested into schools. A lot of it gets invested into education about cannabis. A lot of it gets invested into social justice issues to try and reverse some of the problems that came from the war on drugs. So a lot of good can be done with it. At the same time, the taxes on the legal products increase the price. So the illicit market still has the benefit of having lower prices. And so there's a real trade-off there. The higher the taxes are, the higher the prices are, and the more attractive the cannabis and the illicit market is. So it'll be very interesting to see how that evolves over the coming years. And it's just something that I think you should think about. And the last thing is really an overall piece of advice, as I alluded, just to be patient. The laws are going to evolve even after you guys legalize. That happens everywhere. It's going to take time for those stores to open and for the industry to really get going and mature. And, you know, in the first month, you know, everybody's going to sell out of all the products because there's not enough product to meet the demand. But over time, it becomes really critical for businesses to be invested in data and technology solutions so that they can be educated about what their consumers want and how their consumers are changing over time, because the consumers themselves are going to change. They're going to learn and they're going to adapt and change as new products start to come out. You have to use data to be competitive, to understand what your competitors are doing and really stay ahead of the curve. And you have to use technology to streamline your operations and become very efficient in how quickly and effectively you're offering different solutions to your customers. And that really, really becomes apparent as you go from year 1 to year 2 and year 3, and the industry matures and more stores and brands start to pop up. And so part of what Leafly does is really enable that. And I'll show you some examples. What I really want to talk about today is data. And at Leafly, we have, I think of our data ecosystem in 3 different segments. So one of them is what I call the demand side. And so that's all of the data that we have and we collect from our consumer audience. So we've got, again, about 120 million people that'll be using the Leafly platform this year. And so we have a lot of rich data about what they're clicking on, what they're searching for, what they're reading about, what they're ordering online. And that's obviously very valuable. It's valuable to us so that we can build better algorithms to recommend better products and better information to the consumers. It's very valuable to the stores and the brands on the Leafly platform because we can learn a lot about those customers and help bring them to those stores. The second big piece of data that I think about actually comes from the retailers and the brands themselves. So this is the supply side data. What kinds of products are they actually selling at their stores? And what does the composition of that product landscape look like? As you can imagine, that also changes over time as new types of strains get made, as new types of products and form factors get innovated. That's constantly changing and constantly interacting with the demand side with the consumers. And the last piece that I'm also very excited about is the actual chemistry of these products. So we actually, in addition to partnering with retailers and brands to connect them with our consumer audience, we also partner with laboratory testing facilities, and we ingest from them the actual chemical data about what these strains and these products are actually made out of. And that gives us a very, very fine-grained level of understanding of what's inside of these products. And we tie all of these things together in different ways, and I'll show you some examples. But 3 major ways that we use this data are: 1, we can create personalized recommendations and a personalized, tailored shopping experience for our consumers. And so a lot of what we do is really focused on that consumer audience. The reason that so many people come to Leafly is the information that we have and the experience that we can bring to people to help educate them and help connect them with new products. The other thing we can do for retailers and for brands is bring them consumer insights and market trends. And so we have data products that we offer to those stores and to those brands that help show them some of the trends that are out there so they can run their business more effectively. I'll show you a couple examples there. And lastly, we can tie all of these things together such that we have these massive integrated data sets. And not only do we use those to help our consumers with our recommendations, not only can we build data products for retailers and brands, but we actually make those data sets available to a couple different types of entities out there. On the one side, we can make those available to academic researchers who want to work with us to really understand this data at a very rigorous level. And we also make them available to large businesses who want to use it for their own research and development purposes. So on the personalization side, on this first bullet point here, how do we make personalized recommendations for consumers? Well, just one way that I'll describe that is we have a very unique approach to that at Leafly, because unlike pretty much any other business out there, we have a combination of both the subjective data coming to us from our consumers. So that's coming to us from our reviews. People write reviews about how strains and how products affect them, whether or not something makes them sleepy or hungry or feel creative or what have you. They're telling us how they feel subjectively in response to these different cannabis strains and cannabis products. And obviously that's very valuable because we can tailor recommendations to people based on all of those reviews. The other thing that we have in addition that I'll go into towards the end is objective data about the actual chemical composition of these products. And we can combine those two things in powerful ways and design algorithms that actually take our understanding of how people feel when they consume these products based on what they're telling us, and also what's actually inside these products at the level of their chemistry. And combining those things turns out to be very powerful in terms of how you can recommend cannabis to consumers and build a platform that that people want to come back to. And that's really why our audience continues to grow, is we're building an experience people want to come back to because of this ability to use data in this way. So so this is an example. So this is something that you would see on a cannabis strain page. And there's a couple things I'll point out here. So what you're seeing is, you're on the Gorilla Glue 4 strain page in Everett, Washington. So if I'm at home, I might be seeing this. I'm in Washington. And so Gorilla Glue 4 is one of the most popular strains out there. It became actually the most viewed strain in the world this past year. And what we're showing you here are strains similar to Gorilla Glue 4. So the user can see various attributes about this strain and about strains that are similar to it. You can see the name of the strain. You can see what kinds of products, whether they're flower, pre-roll, concentrates, or what have you, that might be available nearby to you. You can see what type of cannabis strain it is. You can see the average THC composition. You can see information about other cannabinoids and the terpene profile, as well as the top reported effect for that strain. And so just like you can go on to Amazon or any other e-commerce platform, we're giving users the ability to compare and contrast these strains so they can find the best one for them. And so that's really a lot of what we do using this data. So the second thing here are the consumer insights and trends that we can make available to retailers and brands so that they can do a more efficient job at running their business operations and also more effectively connect with the right consumers, because with 120 million people on the platform, that's a lot of people, and the volume is important. But what's arguably more important is actually connecting the right retailer with the right person, because there's so many different types of people in terms of their demographic features and in terms of the type of cannabis they're looking for. And it's really not one size fits all. Different consumers have different needs that you need to think about. And so we offer something called Leafly Insights, which is just a relatively simple digital product that's really effective at doing the following things. One is it shows retailers and brands what strains are trending in their area, and that's important, and I'll come back to that. We see a lot of heterogeneity and dynamism in this industry, meaning that the strains and the products that are trending in California are going to be different from the ones trending in Mexico or Canada or on the East Coast of the United States. And those things change every month and every year. So the strains that are trending the most today are different from the ones that were trending last year. And so we build some insights, some products into this insights feature that show people what those trending strains and trending products are in their area. Competitive analysis and price comparison. That's another important thing. This is, very obvious as a retail business and as a brand selling products. You want to be very aware and very up to date about what your competitors are doing and how your prices compare to other stores and other brands that are out there. And believe it or not, people still do this in a very old-fashioned way, I might say. So they, a lot of stores will send their employees to do secret shopping at other stores and physically write down products. So what we do is we just make that job easier. We just show you how your products compare in price to other products in your area, whether or not your prices are higher and lower to the average for different products in your area. And it really just allows you to do that competitive business operations analytics work right from the comfort of your office on your computer. And lastly, we help you find in-demand products, by understanding the prices out there, by understanding the trends that are out there among the consumers. We can point you very clearly to what's trending in your area and make suggestions to your business about the products that you might want to sell that you aren't selling, or the products that you might have that are perhaps not selling as fast as other products that are out there. So that's really business analytics products. What I want to do is just show you some examples of some of the simple trends that we look at. So what I did was I pulled some data from February of this year for Mexico to give people a sense for what consumers in Mexico are looking at. So to start out with, I just wanted to show you the top 10 strains that were viewed on Leafly from users in Mexico. And I also pulled yesterday a couple numbers on Mexico. And so it looked like for the web products, so meaning leafly.com, in the last year, we had, I think, about 1.5 million unique visitors from Mexico. From the application, I'm not sure. But there would be additional users using our native apps, which are free to download on your cell phone. So, we have millions of people in Mexico using the Leafly app today. And what I can tell you is we tend to have quite a large surge in the month before and the month after legalization. So in the off the top of my head, every time that a new state legalizes cannabis in the US, there's always a surge in that month leading up to legalization. And we tend to see a 20, a 30, even a 50% increase in the users as that happens. And so these are the top 10 most viewed strains in Mexico. And there's a couple things that jump out here to me as someone who's familiar with the same data in the United States. So the first is you see strains in Mexico that are popular that are also popular in the US and globally. So Original Glue, Blue Dream, Gelato, OG Kush. These are sort of classic cannabis strains that are popular everywhere. And you see that they're popular in Mexico as well. However, this list is not identical to the same list from the United States. There's actually some strains on here that you don't see in the top 10 in the US. Mimosa would be an example. So Mimosa, number 9 there, relatively more popular in Mexico than what we're seeing in the US. And I'll show you some other examples of things that are unique to Mexico as well. So this is these are just the top 10 strains. To summarize, this is based on people looking at the strain pages, and all of this information we make available to our retail and brand partners on Leafly. So if you're on Leafly to have a virtual storefront or to have a brand page, you have access to this information and other information. These are the top 10 most viewed articles from last month in Mexico, and I'll point out some salient features here to me. So what's number 1 here? Number 1 by far is an article called How to Make Canna Butter. And it's an article that's all about how you can make cannabis butter, like oil, butter that you can make food with in your home. So people are apparently very interested in how to make this. This is a very popular article overall. It's extremely popular in Mexico, it seems. And, people are curious about how to do stuff with cannabis in their home. You might notice how to roll a cannabis joint is also in the top 10. How to germinate cannabis seeds. In other words, how to grow cannabis at home. So a lot of what we would call Cannabis 101 articles about basic cannabis information, a lot of those are about how to do stuff in your own home. So how to make cannabis butter, how to roll a joint, how to germinate seeds and grow cannabis. People are very curious about these things. And that's pretty much what we see in most markets when they go to legalize. People are interested in what they can do with cannabis in their own home. The top 100 marijuana strains of all time. That's a popular one in Mexico right now. Number 2, unsurprisingly, is our Mexico legalization article. So that's in our politics section, all about the shifting legal updates in the state. What is Delta 8 THC? Decarboxylation. Again, a lot of Cannabis 101 information about cannabinoids, about cannabis, about how to do and how to consume things. 8 ways to counteract cannabis high that's too strong. So people are very curious about this basic information as we lead up to legalization. Some trends from Mexico that I think are very interesting that I wanted to share with this group. And so again, this would be information that this is the type of stuff that we put into our Leafly Insights product for businesses. And this is a fascinating area for me. I'm always looking at the trending strains graphs for the different regions for 2 reasons. One, I just think it's fun. It's fun to see what's trending right now. But also it's changing. It changes every month and every year. And so I want to point out a couple of things that I think are interesting about this particular graph, which is showing you the top 10 fastest trending strains in Mexico for the month of the month of February, this past month, measured as year-over-year growth. So the first thing I want to point out is look how big some of these numbers are. 400, 600, 800, almost 1,000% year-over-year growth in how much people are looking at these strains this year compared to last year. So people are very, very much looking at these things this year and as compared to last year. The other thing that I'll point out, excuse me, the other thing that I'll point out is many of the strains on this list are quite unique to Mexico, meaning we don't see the same strains trending in the United States and in Canada. So what I notice when I look at this as someone who's very familiar with the US data, banana punch, Tropicana cookies, fruit punch, apple fritter, a lot of fruit names, a lot of banana, Tropicana, those type of names. We don't see those show up as much in the US as we do. And so for whatever reason, it appears that these sort of tropical or fruity flavored strains are especially common down in Mexico. And that's interesting to me. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I'll go back to some of these things at the end, are these sort of massive integrative data sets that we put together. So, I showed you some of the personalized recommendations we can put together. I showed you some of the insights about the trends that we see with people. And so we can combine all of these things together with this last piece that comes to us from our lab partners about the cannabis chemistry. And we have these, what I would say, are very unique data sets, and they're integrated, meaning we're putting all of these pieces together. Consumer demand, what are people interested in? What are they doing, and how is that changing? Supply, what is actually out there being sold today by all the different retailers and brands? And then literally we have information down to the level of the chemistry of these strains and products. And you can imagine, whether you're an academic who wants to just understand these things at a very high level of detail, or you're, say, a pharmaceutical company, or you're a large licensed producer for cannabis, and you have your own research and development that you want to facilitate. This data is really good at doing that, because you can understand how all of these things connect as you think about, producing or trying to grow new strains, as you're trying to think about new formulations you might make to sell products into, as you're trying to figure out, what types of consumer segments and what types of products you want to target your business with. So we're doing, for example, a nice study right now that I'm very excited about with the University of Colorado Boulder. So that's something that I do a little bit on the side. I'm working with a really talented team there, and we are doing the largest, most detailed study of cannabis chemistry that's been done to date globally. So we hope that will be published later this year. So you can look for that. That'll be a peer-reviewed scientific research paper that goes into an extreme level of detail about the chemical composition of cannabis. And just to give you a flavor for that, I think I put some graphs in here, really for the last audience I did. But what this is doing, what our partnerships with labs do, is they allow us to look inside the plant to understand it from the inside out at the level of chemistry. And so what you're looking at here are cannabis trichomes. This is actually the highest resolution microscope image of cannabis trichomes in the world from a study a couple of years ago. And what this data does that comes to us from the labs is that it allows us to see what's inside the top of these trichomes, what's inside of the essential oil, all of the cannabinoids, all of the terpene compounds that are actually responsible for the effects and the aromas of these products. And as you can imagine, understanding that is really powerful when it comes to understanding what these products are and what the different products can do in terms of the effects they have. And so we've got a variety of lab partners in both the US and Canada. We always like new lab partners, and as things come online in Mexico, I would definitely love to find at least one lab partner in Mexico that can also work with us on this. So for anyone on the call that happens to know someone who might be interested in that space, I would love to talk to those people. But these are our lab partners in the US and Canada. This is called the Leafly Certified Labs program, which we run. And what we do is the labs submit anonymized data to us for my team to evaluate based purely on the data. We're just looking to make sure that the data looks like it's collected properly, that it's rigorous, and it's not unusual in any ways. So we're very rigorous on my team about working with labs that are accurately collecting this data, because on the scientific side especially, it's very important to me that the data is accurate. So these are our lab partners in the US and Canada, and we can take in that data and combine it with the consumer data and the retail and the brand data to really understand things at a level of detail that I think no one else probably can at this point. So I'm not going to dwell on the hardcore data too much, but just to give you a sense here, right? We've got all of the measurements for cannabis flower products and other products in all of these places. Over 100,000 measurements at this point that have detailed levels of data on the cannabinoid and the terpene composition of these products, so we can start to understand how THC and CBD levels relate to each other, how different other cannabinoids are found in these plants, and how all of the terpenes actually relate to each other. And again, I don't want to get lost in the detail here. We're publishing a paper later this year, but the point of these graphs is really just to show you that we have an unprecedented level of understanding about how all of these chemical constituents actually relate to each other and the patterns with which they're found in the different strains and products that are out there. And it's really interesting and really powerful work. The last thing I want to show you is how we've used that chemical data on Leafly and used our new understanding of cannabis in terms of chemistry to really reimagine how we show and how we organize the strains on Leafly for our consumer audience. And so this is the old Leafly strain tile system, and we've built a new system based on the chemistry data that we've been studying for the last couple of years. And so the canonical understanding of cannabis strains historically has been that there's three types: indica, hybrid, and sativa. And the belief out there by a lot of people is that the indica strains make you sleepy and the sativa strains make you energized and the hybrid strains are in the middle. But it turns out that there's not a lot of evidence to support that. And there's actually really no good relationship between the chemistry that we see and those labels. And so what we did was we reimagined how we look at strains based on their actual chemical composition. So if we look at strains based on the cannabinoid, like THC or CBD, that's most prominent in that strain, and the terpene that's most prominent in that strain, we get a very different picture of cannabis chemistry. So the colors here are showing you the most prominent terpene for each strain. And when you reorganize strains based on their actual chemical composition, what you see is a new but very exciting logic that emerges. So there's actually several different types of cannabis strains out there that you can define in terms of their chemistry. And because they're defined in terms of their chemistry, the different strains are going to have different effects and flavors and aromas because they're actually made of different chemical constituents. So for example, the most common type of strain that's out there are these blue ones. Those are high THC strains with a terpene called myrcene that's at particularly high levels in those strains. There's another type called pinene, a very different chemical type. And notice that there's only 3 examples here. It's a harder to find chemical variety that's out there. Not all stores carry all of the types that are out there because most retailers, most brands are not aware of this logic today. Notice that, there's these orange strains over here. They have a different chemical composition than the blue ones. What I can tell you that's kind of interesting about Mexico is when I look at the popular and the trending strains in Mexico, I actually see an overrepresentation of these yellow ones and these orange ones. These are strains that are dominant in the terpene limonene, that's the yellow ones, or terpinolene, that's the orange ones. And what's kind of interesting is those ones are associated most commonly with cannabis strains that have citrus or fruit flavors and aromas. And so for whatever reason, the users in Mexico seem to be particularly interested in the strains that have those fruity or citrus-like aromas. And so that's pretty interesting. So again, to summarize, the Leafly data ecosystem is really tying together many different forms of data. We've got the demand side data about what the consumers are doing, what they're looking at, and what they want. That allows us to build on Leafly personalized recommendations and a personalized shopping experience for people. That makes our platform stickier, and that's why we're growing that consumer audience, why more and more people are coming to Leafly over time, because they're getting that personalized experience, they're getting all of that information. That's valuable to the people giving us the supply side, the retailers and the brands that we're actually connecting to those consumers. And so we've got that double-sided marketplace where we connect the consumers with the retailers. Because we're doing that, we're really valuable to the retailers and the brands out there because we're driving sales for them. And then also we're providing those insights, those Leafly insights that allow you to do competitive analysis, that allow you to see what the trends are. And that makes our product stickier because we're bringing that additional value to the retailers. And lastly, we've got this chemistry data that allows us to understand these products at a very, very high level of detail. And that allows us to really augment our ability to make those recommendations to consumers, and then we also make those data sets available to different people that might want to use them for their own research and development purposes. Large brands that are trying to formulate new products, large growers who are interested in seeing what types of strains they might want to start growing, academics who are doing research partnerships with us, even pharmaceutical companies that are interested in understanding things at the level of the chemistry. And so I think I'll end it there. I know that's a lot of information. I kind of went over things quickly, but I've got plenty of time. So if people have questions,
Yeah.
we can go to them now. And if you want to contact me later, my contact information is right here for you.
Thank you, Nick, again. Thanks for coming this Sunday. Some of this info we got it from you the last time, but then you went further. And for example, you talked about laboratories that you actually let us understand well. Did you just ask for a Mexican or some Mexican laboratories to contact you or to make an alliance with Leafly? Is that, did we hear it right? Did we understand it right?
Yes. So the way that would work is once the labs are up and running and they're actually collecting data, there is an application process that we go through. But the answer to your question is yes. I would love to talk to labs from Mexico so that we can actually see what's in that data from Mexico and how it compares to the US. And the way that works is there's an application process. So once the labs are actually collecting data and doing the measurements, they send into me, and I have documents that I can share with people that go into detail about how exactly that works. But they share anonymized data. My team then evaluates that data, and we give the lab a full report back, different charts and graphs and different analysis that we do. And then depending on how many labs are going to be in Mexico, Mexico is a pretty big country. I would want to find at least one lab partner in Mexico. Given the size of the country, probably a couple, just because the country is so big. But yes, anyone who's running a lab or knows someone who's running a lab, they would contact me and we would go through that process together.
Okay, so folks, the new rules in Mexico just opened the possibility for labs to get accredited and certified as cannabis labs, so to speak. So there's a big chance here to work with one of the giant industries. So take note on that. And Nick, there are a few more questions. This one's in regard with Leafly, for example. Philip Green wants to know, where can we find more information about Leafly's business services for the new Mexican market? Are there any specific requirements, or do you still have a process, or are you not in Mexico yet for these services? What can we expect?
Yes, a good question. So we're not in Mexico yet, although we definitely hope to be in Mexico as soon as we can. So on the retail and brand side, if you're going to be running a store or building a brand, there is a place on Leafly you can go to get a sense for what to expect. And let me pull it up on my app so I get it right here. It's called Leafly Biz, B-I-Z. So we do have a business portal that will have that information on it. Let me find the link here. I think it's leafly.com/biz, B-I-Z. And that will give you a sense for the business services that we offer to our retail and brand partners. And that would be exactly what we intend to do in Mexico as soon as we get up and running down there.
Thanks, Nick. There's another question, one that we left unanswered in the last session. Maybe you've had the chance to research the number, I don't know, but it's in regards to how many Mexican users. I mean, you have 120 million users in the unique users at Leafly, how many of those, or what's a round number of Mexican users at Leafly?
Yeah, I can give you an approximate number. So I know that last year we had about 1.5 million, approximately 1.5 million unique users in Mexico for Leafly.com. And so the number would be bigger than that because there's also going to be people using the app. I don't have those numbers. I wasn't able to pull those numbers this weekend, but it's in the millions. I would estimate with the app you're probably talking over 2 million. And I would expect that number to go up quite a bit when legalization happens. There's always that surge that I mentioned right around the time of legalization. And so I would expect that to happen in Mexico as well.
Okay, so Nick, you answered this question the last time, but I'm going to formulate for you again because there's still some people who haven't heard this answer. So how does Leafly collect Mexican product data? Is that even possible? Is there a Mexican product data, or does information that Leafly have on Mexican markets is in regards to the strains that you already have on your database?
Good question. So the answer to the question is we don't have much product data from Mexico yet because we just don't, we don't have stores and brands in Mexico that are partnering with us yet. As that starts to happen, we collect that product specific data from those particular brands and those particular retailers. But the second part of the question is yes. So the data we have today has to do with what the users in Mexico are doing, what they're looking at, searching for, and what they've done on our existing strain database. So one of the things that's sort of convenient about Leafly is we can be present in every market before the markets actually open up, right? So even though we're still waiting for Mexico to legalize, we're still waiting for stores to open and all of that stuff to happen, we're sort of already there because the users are coming onto Leafly and reviewing the strains that they might already be using. And so we do have, we do have those reviews and that user behavior activity from Mexican users. And then as soon as those stores and brands come online, that'll become more and more specific at the product level.
And this is a question in regards to what we can do as right now in Mexico. Will Leafly incorporate some sort of database, not only for specific strains or products in the dispensaries, but also in pharmacies, some sort of medical supply for database that can be looked up upon? Are you planning on setting up those alliances with pharmacies and drugstores here in Mexico? Is that in the scope?
That's a good question. I think it's definitely a possibility. What I would say there is for pharmacies and for the medical cannabis sector, I think the best way that we would partner with someone like that is to really think about the strains and the products using that chemistry data. You can imagine that, a pharmacist, a doctor, a medical patient is going to be much more interested in getting more detail about the chemical composition of these things compared to the recreational consumer. And so I think there are probably opportunities for us to work with those individuals. And then, that also is another reason why it'll be important for us to find a laboratory partner in Mexico, because today we can show you information about the chemical composition of strains that you can expect based on our aggregated data set. But ultimately, we'll want to be able to do that using the chemistry data that's actually, specific to products in Mexico. And I think that would be, that would definitely be very valuable to pharmacists and doctors. And so that's what I would look at there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. We've arrived, unfortunately, we've run out of time. There's still some questions. Guys, why don't you let them come in? We'll save the chat and we'll send them to you by email if by any chance you have some time, free time in between meetings or something. You'd be great.
I suggest something better.
Yeah.
Follow him.
Follow him and in any social networks and ask him directly. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, just ask me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick Trichomes, for being here with us, with Leafly, and making this summit one of the greatest events of the year, where one of the biggest lessons we've had is the one who knows the data controls the market. Thank you very much.
Thank you.